What's good with it? In the hood with it. Welcome back to Gunner's Profiles, where we make the beat go boom, 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 boom. What it is, you already know what it is right here on Gunner's Profiles. Guard! Shut up. And we're going to keep it real today. When I say there will be no added preservatives, it will all be facts, it will all be real. Listen to this story. Now, as you can tell by that thumbnail right there, the Hoover Locos. Now you ask yourself, who the hell are the Hoover Locos? What type of propaganda is that? No, it's real. See, being incarcerated and doing it a lot of time, you run into a lot of different individuals from a lot of different barrios, a lot of different hoods. And you know, I got an extensive history of running into people, meeting them, grasping the concepts and the realities of their hoods and what they were into, and trip out on this. So the Hoovers are a very well-known group. Now, I was around when the Hoover Groovers were still cripping, okay? All of them, I know Five Deuce continues to crip, but all of them, man, A-Tray, Hoover, just so many of them, right? We're still cripping. They were still into that mix. And about the same time that the Perro Chatos, the Bulldogs, broke off from the Norteños, that was about the same time the Hoovers disbanded from the Crips, meaning that they went their own way. Now, that didn't mean they changed anything other than they were no longer rocking a blue flag. They were just doing their own thing. The reasons behind this concept and why they did this, you know, why the wiggleization was so real, I don't know. I will never know. I guess unless you're a Hoover, you know the history, the historian to what they do or why they've done it, you would know. But myself, I didn't. You know, I wasn't privy to that information, nor did I ask. It wasn't my business. One thing I know for sure is they definitely distanced themselves, and I did see a few scuffles and a few chokeouts and all that. And that's not allegedly. That's real. Now, when it comes to 18th Street, Water 18, you know, 18th Street's one of the older prominent gangs in the world. You know, it's been around for a good minute, and they're everywhere. They're nationwide, they're worldwide, but you know where they started. You know, we all know where they started, deep down in the jungles of Los Angeles, right? LA, Los Angeles is where 18 started. You know, they're a breakoff from Clanton 14th Street. And anyone that knows the history about that knows, you know, having a jefita that actually was in 18th Street at one point. You know, I know a little bit about their history, but I'm not going to get into that. But one thing I will say for sure is what tripped me out is with all the black and brown going on, people always think that down in Southern California, it's always been heads up till you're fed up. Now that's hard with the blacks and browns going at it, enemy guys constantly. You know, there are a lot of waters and a lot of hoods that do not get along, that have never got along or have got along at one point and decided that for no other reason there's beef there, and then they don't. And then I know for a time being, man, the blacks definitely were targeted by certain Mexican gangs just based on that's just the way it was, man. Politics deemed that, and it ran like that. Now, lately we've been getting more into black and brown unity. Black and brown politics have now coincided, and now it's more of a like, hey, if you like me, I like you, so we're cool, we're really cool though. And then it's all good. There are still people that hold on to them bitter memories, that bitter rivalry, and there are still waters and hoods that definitely go at it, more so in Southern California than Northern California. Northern California is a little bit different. There are some black and brown sets that do not mix. I know in my city, the Merced Gangster Crips and the west side of Merced, we do not get along, okay? And that's just the way it is, more on personal reasons, and there's a personal agenda behind it, more so than anything else. You know, I've always rocked simultaneously side by side with the brothers. And in the woods, sprinkle them in, brother. That's the woods. You heard what I said. I sprinkle them in all the time because I got a lot of love for everyone. A lot of respect and no disrespect. But one thing for sure is when people are of the understanding that, you know, gangs in Southern California, black and brown gangs are constantly at war against each other, that's far from the truth. There's been a lot of unity and peace between a lot of these gangs. And the one I'm speaking on in particular are the Hoover Locos. Now, for those that don't know who the Hoover Locos are, 18th Street, Barrio 18, and Hoover actually do not share a barrio, but they're in the same type of neighborhood. They're in the same area. And the 18th Streeters were such in that area that they actually had a barrio in that area or a clica called the Hoover Locos. Now, one thing I know for sure, I talked to Dubs. He stamped it, right? Because he's been through some of the same things. If you know anything about the California Youth Authority, it was very racial. It went along them lines. It was a black and brown mix up all the time. There always was some type of discrepancies or some type of he said, she said when it came to the blacks and brown. Just the way it was. It wasn't the way we wanted it. It's just what it is. And it is what it is when it is what it is. That's on la tira, bang, bang. But in a menudo style of direct fashion, I could recall several incidences where 18th Streeters actually got into it with their enemies and the Hoovers assisted them and vice versa. Now, I remember pulling up to, I think it was Nellis, and there was a couple of authors from 18 there. You know, shout out to Crow, Grumpy, and all the real ones that were there. I mean, they were so deep. I only remember certain individuals just based on those are the guys I either talked to or I remember. Babyface, vatos like that. Legendary figures, I guess, in YA. Now, there was two baby faces. One who was real historic and legendary, and there was another one that I was with. Big old vato. We did Tommy Carl Holton together. Anyways, so I pull up to Nellis, and there were several Hoovers as well as 18. They were about, I would say, 20 to 30 Hoovers in this institution, and maybe the same 18. But I remember they always had a close relationship. They always got along, and it tripped me out because I was so used to black and brown going at it. I was so used to Southerners, Southsiders, and blacks going at it, that to see the Hoovers and 18 rocking together in some sort of alliance was a trip to me. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say they were together at all times, but there were a lot of incidences, whereas if somebody jumped on the Hoover and an 18er was there and it wasn't a Mexicano jumping on him, they would help him. And vice versa, the Hoovers would help 18th Street. So I remember getting at this vato named Chinaman from Hoover one day, and I hit him up. He was a good partner of mine, man. He was about that business. And I said, hey, bro, why do you guys assist the 18, guy 18 in everything they do? It seems like every time they're in a mix, you guys are involved in a junta. You guys have your own separate junta with them. And they said, oh, that's because we got a clique within our hood called Hoover Locos that are actually 18th Streeters and Hoovers combined. It's not necessarily together, Crips or Hoovers and Sureños, but they got a lot of respect and admire each other because they've rocked and grew up in them same streets. Now, it got me to thinking about waters such as Grape Street. Now, you all know that Watts Water Grape is one of the older waters, in Watts when it comes to Southsiders. And of course, at one point in time, they were located in the east side of Watts, right there, Grape Streets. Now, the Baby Low Crip, the Grape Street Watts that still reside, Jordan Downs, they're on the east side of Watts. Eventually, because there were so many Africano brothers being jumped in or joining Watts Barrio Grape, Watts Barrio Grape felt that if for no other reason, it wasn't even going to be a Mexicano gang anymore. They weren't going to identify as Southsiders, so they chose to pick up and take their gang to the south side of Watts. And now, if you look, it's still Watts Barrio Grape, but it's south side Watts Barrio Grape and east side Watts Barrio. That's just how it is. That's old school. Up north in Northern California, there's several blacks and brown gangs that not only have joined forces, but actually share the same hoods, like Garden Block Crip. You got Garden Blocks and Barrio Gardons. Same neighborhood, same calles, same streets, shit. At one point, same rag, right? They had the blue rag as well. And that's just how that was. And several other, I can remember when we joined forces a long time ago, a lot of the little homeboys, knowledge, you can't get a college, sit down, you're about to get some game. We actually kicked it with a group called the McNamara Lynch Mob, MLM, right? And it was just a few Africano brothers, man, that decided for no other reason to start a clique, start a hood up. And they rocked with us real tough. We did a lot of business together. And we grew up together, so it was all good in the hood. So there's a lot of black and brown that has been going on behind the scenes, whether it be in the gang underworld or just in reality in life, period. But the Hoover Locos stood out amongst the rest because I literally seen them back in each other's play. Now, I've told the story about the C14ers, and I'm going to reiterate a little bit just for the hate they want to. Sasuke, can I do that? Am I allowed? I allow you to. Can I do it? Okay, so there's a lot of people that ask me questions about C14. How did it start? Where did it start? Why did it start? And just like the Hoover Locos, it started out of friendship, respect, two different groups coming together as one to join forces because they had a common enemy, and not necessarily a common enemy, but also because they had respect for each other. They liked the vatos. You know what I mean? Orale, you're the homies. Now you act like you don't know me. Orale, Dre Day, all damn day. Now, one thing I know for sure is when it came to the C14ers, it blew my mind, tripped me out. I always knew that as a Norteño, we worked hand in hand in some places with the Africano brothers because it was beneficial to both groups. We were never in an alliance where, hey, look, we're going to do this like that and like this and like that. And it never went the Snoop Dogg route, but the route it did go, I appreciated it because sometimes I needed backup, being the short man on the stick, right? But guaranteed facts are there's a lot of brothers that did back my play, and then I have a lot of respect for them because of that. And I have a lot of respect for them outside of that. Even if you never backed my play, you're a brother, same struggle, same minority status. Let's do this. Hey, the black and brown. But the C14 was a different animal. That was something that was based up out of Stockton, California. And when it actually started with the hood called 44 Gs, or Northside Gangster Crips up out of Stockton. There were several of them. They were the NCs. They were the Northern Crips that you would actually run into incarcerated. They were the deeper hood. There were some Merced Gangster Crips, some Cripas out of Sacra. But for the most part, you would run into these townhome, these 44 Gs. Now, somewhere along the lines, they clicked up with the Norteños up out of Stockton and started to claim C14, which was a derivative of Crip 14. It basically was, they came together on some gangster shit, and they did that. They did that, and man, some of them were some of the realest individuals to date that I've ever met. I have so much respect. They garnered so much respect for me because they did their thing. Some of them went harder on the Southsiders or our enemies than we did. And at that time, we used to go at it with Woods and the Southsiders and anybody who wanted that smoke and anybody that wanted smoke from us. And we had a whole lot of smoke. You got smoke? Hey, what are you looking at, man? Hey, I wasn't looking at his neck, man. I'm telling you, straight up, anyone who wanted that smoke, you got smoke. We had smoke, a whole lot of it, right? Everybody did. Everybody had a little bit of smoke for everybody. Now, one thing about smoke is it's never going to go away. It doesn't dissipate. It's going to stay there. It's going to get real smoky before it gets better. And I'm going to tell you, if you're about that cheddar and you're really about getting paid, there was a lot of people that would get paid before they'd get played. And the C14ers were just that group. There wasn't very many Crips that actually assisted us or actually claimed C14, but the ones that did were righteous and real. Now, the same thing went for the Hoover Locos. I'm sure that clica is pretty deep, 18 being the deepest water in the world. I'm sure there was probably several of them, and they did rock with the Hoovers. But what I'm talking about here when I say Hoover Locos, it tripped me out because all 18ers from every side while incarcerated that I was locked up with, and I'm talking about youth authority, did function and rock with the Hoovers, meaning they didn't eat with them and they didn't, play grab ass with them or none of that stuff, but they definitely did get down with each other when the time came. Especially if it was a common enemy, especially if it was like someone from Florencia who they both didn't get along with or something like that, then of course, bam, they assisted them. Now, it always tripped me out because I hear people talking about black and brown all the time. And they automatically get the assumption that we're worse enemies and that we're against each other. But that's furthest from the truth, man. Black and brown is a lot more similar than a lot of people think. People just don't want to take the initiative to really go out there and grasp the concept as that another culture is beautiful just like ours. Now, I'm brown. I'm always going to stay brown. I'm going to remain brown. I'm going to be brown and proud. It's going to be brown and first and foremost every day of the week, every night of the day, every torta that I bone. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to stay brown. But that doesn't mean I ain't got love and respect for a lot of other people because they get down the exact same way, if not even harder in some instances. Now, that's facts. Going to prison was different. Going to prison, I'm sure this clica Hoover Locos still had respect and love for their Hoover counterparts, but at the same time, that was never going to happen in prison because politics were different. They didn't even function on the same side of the yards. And it wasn't that they would turn the cheek to others, but it was just the way it was. Now, I did run into one Hoover Loco that I did do time with, and he just told me that it was just a clique within that hood, and they had love for each other. Now, I've seen several black and brown groups get along and actually go against. I know at one point in time, Florencia, there were some that wore red just because they got along with some of the sangres in their area. I mean, that's just how it is. Every clica, every water was different. And I can't sit here and give you the whole rundown and every intricacy and detail into everything that's going on because at the same time, I just don't know. But what I do know is facts. The Hoover Locals maintained. Now, the Hoovers have always been a mystery to me, and the reasons from them breaking up, and for Five Deuce Hoover actually staying crippin'. But it's just like any other hood, any other clique, any other gang. There's a mystery there. There's an air of mystery. You'll never know what happens or what happened unless you're from there. See, all these things, these concepts, and these reasons behind what people do, why they do, is never put out there publicly. It's always behind the scenes. You have a junta, you have a meeting, you get with your people. I know in my barrio, I don't know if it's still done, because I'm not no longer involved in the reindeer games, but as Rudolph once said, I got my clickety on, and I was right there at all times. We used to do it monthly, function, have a group meeting to where we'd have it. Blanca Spencer, I can't give you that info. No, not me. Not 4-0. I'll beat a boots down with a 2x4. Now, trip out, but what I do know is facts. We did have meetings, and there were several things discussed. Not always negative, sometimes good things. Hey, we're going to have the barbecue still? No, because last time we had the barbecue, you were looking at my lady's cachettes. Was I? To what degree? She does got a good one, though. I'm going to keep it real. There's a lot of things that go on, but we had a lot of good information was passed along, amongst each other, and we kept each other on the same page. Because any hood, any barrio, any clica, anyone who basically are representing the same side and the same get down, you need to be on the same page. If you got a baboso over here smoking the piso, then you got another over here on his knees though, both are all bad, right? But you needed some soldados, some ones that are willing to defend the casa, the household. They're willing to represent the barrio and do it in the best light. Now I know Hoovers represent their crippin', they represent their Hooverism. You know, Hooverism, new word of the day, right? And then of course you have the 18th Streeters who have always repped hard wherever they're from, all the way from Japan to Australia to Egypt to Hollywood. Oh, they're everywhere. Vatos are deep. You know, respects to 18, the deepest water in the world. And then of course, you know, you have people like the Bulldogs that have several different cliques, several different gangs, but all fall under the Bulldog symbolism. You know, and Norteños are the same way. You know, at the end of the day, you'll see a Norteño from Woodlake, a vato over here from Yuba City, a vato from Richmond, a vato from, you know, Merced, Sala, San Fran, San Juan, it doesn't matter. And they all rock a huelga bird, right? It's a common understanding that this is the symbolization for the Norte. Just like you understand that the Sud, the Bulldogs, the whoever they may be have their civilizations, and that's how it is. Now, when two groups come together and form something new, it's a beautiful thing to see, especially black and brown coming together. But it ain't nothing new. It ain't nothing that ain't went on in the history. You know, the history repeats itself. For anyone who don't know history, you got me going in circles. Guard! I just like saying that. Got me going in circles, right? Get behind me. Get behind me. And for factuals and actuals, I will say this. History does repeat itself. So anything that happens now or anything that could happen in the future has already happened before. It might not have happened dead on in the same hoods, the same cliques or whatever, but it's happened. You know, there's been plenty of, you know, hey, let's rock together. The movie Tax Collector, for instance, you see at the end, the vato needed help and he went to the Sangres and they backed his play, not based on where he was from, but based on the content of his character. When you're a righteous, upstanding individual or a man or a woman and people respect you because of the work that you put in or because of who you are, they will show you love. If you're not, bad guys, all you're going to get, and a whole lot of it, that and bubblegum. And guess what? I said, Hubba Bubba went out of business. And that's just the real facts of it. Now, shout out to the Hoover Locos, the ones that continue to strive and struggle. Like I said in YA, and I'm gonna, you know what? We got a little bit of time. Let me tell you the story. So there was a vato, there was a sangre. And this guy right here was one of those type of dudes that he wasn't going to be on a compa too long. And it wasn't because of anything he'd done. It was what he was about to do. He just had some hatred for Crips. And he had some hatred for Southsiders. So he was a common enemy of theirs. He was a bigger dude. Everyone knew every time he got out the oil, and this was in Fred Sinellis, every time he got out, he was going to flight. Now, what that did and what it could have done was cause a wreck for everybody. Because if a sangre, a blood, right, or paru, if a blood took flight on a Southsider, then every Southsider was going to jump, or several of them were going to jump, and it's going to cause a melee and a riot. And their people's going to be mad at their people, and then we're going to watch from the sidelines because it wasn't our people. And that's just how, even though it was our people, that's just how it was. But this guy liked to take flight. Now, eventually what happened, and it's a trip because this was the first time I had seen this, you know, besides CXIV and besides the Hoover Locals, where the blacks and browns actually came together and meleeed on this guy. The stompalization was real. As soon as he rocked in the compa, I remember he got there, they would release people out of the oil probably about the after. I mean, you get released at all points in times. Usually it was 24 hours after your write-up was done, then you got released about an hour later. But this vato happened to get released like midday. And I remember him walking in, and we had came back because you would come back from the school area for lunch. So everybody would come back to the compa, eat your lunch, and whoever had afternoon school would bounce. And whoever didn't would have day room or yard. That's just how it functions right there in Ellis, right? And I remember I didn't have afternoon school. I just had morning school. So after fighting about 10 times, I'd come back. And I remember we're eating our lunches. We're grubbing, right? Me and the homeboy, bad boy from Sakura, we broke a sopa. So we're busting a spread. And you won't, if you're not in the day room, you're not gonna, that's where the doors are. The front door is. So I guess he walked through the day room. There was a couple of individuals out there, but they didn't really notice. They were paying attention to Soul Train or whatever they were watching. The hippies showing America. And then Vato walked in, like, and got his Don Cornelius on, was able to slide by like Al Green, just stay together, and made it all the way to the dorm. And in my mind, I knew when I seen him, I said, oh, that's that one blood, right? That be getting off. I knew he was going to pick a target and get off. To what degree of target? Probably the highest degree. And it didn't go down like that. Every Southsider and every blood and Crip in that motherfucker jumped up and wah, wah, wah. The price was wrong, homie. I'm telling you right now, they drug him from the latrine area to the showers, turned the water on his head. Thank God the water was off, right? Bounced him off a few lockers, hit him with the short wall, hit him in the tall wall. He went through about every single cell. They mollywopped this dude. By the time the placas got there was barely anything left. Oh, there was blood, all right, but it wasn't the type that you think. They did him dirty, right? Even his own brothers did him dirty because they were tired of him doing this and moving on his own accord and his own agenda. So that was the only time that I actually seen all the Southsiders and all the blacks combined to stomp one guy out. Man, there was like 100 on one. It was all bad. It was ugly. Now, shout out to the Hoover Locos. I just wanted to speak on it. It's a clica within a gang that not a lot of people have heard about. And it's actually something that when they did go to jail, or why, I don't want to say jail because jail is different and prison is different. As an adult, you get into different things. But in YA, they did rock, man. You know, in certain things, Hoovers and 18s did rock. With that being said, I hope that you move smooth with a purpose. I hope that you enjoyed this spill because it's a real one. Hope that you get everything together and that you do what you does. Because at the end of the day, we only have what we got. You know, if you like this, hit that like and subscribe. Gunners Profiles, let's get it boom bangling over here. We need to get it popping, gente. Raza, stand up. Mess with your boy one time. If not, thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears this Raiders crown. I'm going to continue to strive and struggle for what I honestly and truly believe in, and that's telling real stories, real facts, real palabra, real game, knowledge you can't get in college, and bringing people together while I do it. Hey, Wood, can I get a shot? Can I get 2 shots of coffee, brother? The gun. Bang, bang.